A flash from Dallas. Two priests who were with President Kennedy say he is dead.
The photo first appeared in the Vedette Messenger of Valparaiso, Indiana. Mutely tells the tragic story of Mr. and Mrs. Ray Chalafu.
The case of the 1903 photograph is shocking. Some pictures are worth more than 1,000 words, and these photos are so confusing that they've baffled experts for years. One such photo features an unidentified figure that no one can explain, while another shows a creepy family scene from long ago. What things could these images be hiding? Let us dig deep into these rare historical photos that will make you doubt your perception of reality. The unknown woman in Dallas. This photograph shows someone called the Babushka Lady. It looks like a normal picture of a woman, but nobody knows who she really is. And it's one of the biggest unanswered questions out there. Her story starts on a very important day, November 22nd, 1963, in a plaza in Dallas, Texas. That was the day President John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and it sent the whole place into chaos. Among the photos taken that day, one woman caught everyone's attention. She was named the Babushka Lady because she wore a headscarf similar to those old Russian women wear. What's intriguing is that she seemed to be using a camera, possibly catching on film the exact moment J.F.K. was shot. The FBI tried really hard to find her and see if she had any footage that could be important, but she was never found, and she never came forward. What makes the Babushka Lady so interesting is how she acted during the assassination. While most people were shocked and scared, running to find safety, she stayed calm, kept filming, and didn't move much, as if she knew what was going to happen. This calm behavior during such a shocking event has made people come up with all sorts of ideas about who she might be. Even after many years and lots of trying to figure it out, we still don't know who she is. Some think she might have been a spy, others think she was just an ordinary person caught in the middle of a chaotic situation. Today, her photo is still a big topic of conversation because of all the unanswered questions about her. This photo from August 1948 shows a really sad moment. It has a sign that says, "For children for sale," and shows a mother standing with her 4 kids. This was a real thing that happened to some families who were really poor back then. The mom in the picture, named Lucille, and her husband, Ray Chalafu, who didn't have a job and drove a coal truck, were about to lose their apartment in Chicago. They felt so desperate that they decided to sell their children, hoping it would give them a better life. The picture spread all over the country very fast, and people were very upset when they saw it, offering help. But even with all the attention, within 2 years, none of the children lived with their parents anymore. The youngest kid, David, was lucky to be adopted by a strict but caring couple, Harry and Luella McDaniel. Despite a tough start, he managed to have a good life, serving 20 years in the military and later working as a truck driver. His siblings, Renee and Milton, weren't so lucky. They were sold for just $2 to J.N. and Ruth Sutton, who were very harsh and made them work hard in the barn from a very young age. They even changed the kids' names, making it even harder for them. Despite growing up in such tough conditions, Renee, now called Beverly, ended up being a loving mother. Milton had a harder time dealing with his rough past, which led to violent actions as a teenager, and he ended up in a mental hospital before finally moving to Arizona and starting his own family. This image is about something called the Black Knight satellite, and there's a lot of talk about what it might be. The story goes back to 1899 when a famous inventor named Nikola Tesla picked up some strange signals while working in his lab in Colorado Springs. Tesla thought these signals were from smart beings from another planet, maybe Mars, and his claims started a long-lasting story about the Black Knight satellite. Later, in 1927, a guy from Norway named Jørgen Hals also picked up some weird radio echoes that no one could really explain, adding more intrigue to the story. Years later, a UFO researcher named Donald Kehoe said that the U.S. Air Force found 2 unknown satellites orbiting the Earth at a time when no one could actually send satellites into space. This got people talking even more, and there were more sightings and reports over the years. In 1960, a Navy radar caught something strange, a dark object moving in a different kind of orbit than most satellites. The government later said it was just a piece of space junk, but not everyone was convinced. By the time this photo was taken in 1998 during a space mission, the story of the Black Knight satellite was already well known. The photo shows a dark, odd-shaped object in space, which some people think is the satellite. Although NASA said it was just a piece of insulation that had come off, there are still people who believe it might be something from outer space. While some stories leave us with questions, the next one brings ancient ruins to life, offering a glimpse into a different world long gone. The hairy creature in Florida. Back in 2000, an interesting photo showed up at the Sarasota County Sheriff's Office. It was a picture of what people now call the Myakka skunk ape, or just the skunk ape. This creature is rumored to live in the wild areas of Florida and looks like a big, hairy ape that walks on two legs. It's famous for having a really bad smell, kind of like a skunk mixed with a wet dog. People have been talking about seeing this creature since the early 1900s. One of the earliest stories is about the skunk ape jumping onto someone's car and then running off into the swamp. Another tale from 1957 describes a big, smelly ape that messed up a hunter's camp in the Everglades. The skunk ape really started getting attention in the late 1990s and early 2000s, especially from David Shealy. He calls himself a skunk ape expert because he saw one when he was a kid. Ever since then, he's been all about proving they exist. He takes videos, collects stories, and tries to get others interested. In 2000, he even said he got a video of the skunk ape moving through the swamp. Most scientists don't believe the footage shows a real creature, but David Shealy hasn't given up. He's still out there looking for more proof. In 1972, archaeologists found two old skeletons at a site called Tepe Hassanlu in northwest Iran. They figured out that these bones were buried around 2,800 years ago, or about 800 BCE. When they found them, the skeletons were close together, almost like they were hugging or giving each other a last kiss while their city burned down around them. That's why they started calling them the Hassanlu lovers. For many years, these skeletons were thought to represent a timeless love story. But then, new research suggested that both skeletons might be men. This made everyone start guessing all over again. Were they lovers, relatives, or just friends? Even now, no one is sure exactly what their relationship was, but everyone has a theory. In Norway's Hessdalen Valley, there's a really curious thing happening with some lights in the sky. These aren't regular lights. They're called the Hessdalen lights. They come in different colors like white, yellow, red, blue, and green, and they can show up at any time, day, or night. Sometimes they just float there, and other times, they zip across the sky super fast. People have a lot of questions about these lights. What are they? Why are they there? What causes them? So far, no one has definite answers, but the lights keep showing up, keeping everyone guessing and watching. Imagine you're checking your home security footage because your dogs have been barking at something every night, and you see something totally unexpected, a pair of white creatures that look like walking pants moving across your front yard. That's what happened in Fresno, California in 2007. These beings were given the name Fresno Nightcrawlers. They're pretty tall, maybe 5 to 7 feet, but they look mostly like long legs with hardly any body on top. They move in a smooth, flowing way that makes them seem almost ghostly. They're usually white or light gray, which adds to their spooky appearance. Since that first sighting, other people have reported seeing them too. Are they real creatures? Or is it all just a big hoax? Nobody knows for sure, but they've definitely become a part of local folklore. From the wonders of nature to the truly strange, the next photo challenges us to think about history in a new way. The photo with the strange figure. Here's a photo that'll make you scratch your head. It looks like it shows a little girl with an astronaut standing right behind her. Weird, right? This photo was taken on May 23, 1964, by a man named Jim Templeton. He was just out with his family, taking pictures of his daughter Elizabeth during a trip to a place called Berg Marsh. But when he got the photos developed, he found this strange one that looked like there was a spaceman in it. The photo got a lot of attention. It was in the newspapers, and experts even checked it to make sure it wasn't tampered with. Some people thought it might be an alien or a time traveler. But nowadays, a lot of people think the figure in the background was just his wife, maybe looking over the area, and not an astronaut at all. Here's a photo from around 1892 that shows something pretty shocking: an enormous pile of bison skulls at a place called Michigan Carbon Works in Rougeville, Michigan. Long ago, millions of bison roamed North America, but by the late 1800s their numbers had dropped dramatically. This photo shows just how many were eliminated, but it also helped spark some of the first efforts to protect wildlife in America. Thanks to the work of early conservationists and later help from the government, the bison started to make a comeback. Today, there are about 500,000 bison, with many living in protected areas and nature reserves. It's a comeback story that shows how people can make a difference for nature. So here's the deal with this photo that the Cooper family shared. They say it hasn't been messed with, and it's known as the falling body photo, or Cooper family photo. At first look, everything seems fine, just a family smiling for the camera. But then, if you look closely to the left, there's what looks like a person falling from the roof. This odd photo has made people come up with all kinds of explanations, from otherworldly activities to someone playing around with the photo's effects. Some think it might show a ghost. Others call the whole thing fake. Experts think the image of the falling person could be because of a camera trick called double exposure, where two pictures get mixed into one. Despite lots of people trying to figure it out, no one really knows the full story behind this photo yet. Back in the 19th century, after Napoleon took over Egypt, Europeans got super interested in all things Egyptian. This whole thing was called Egyptomania. Merchants quickly figured out that tourists wanted to take home pieces of ancient Egypt. And what's more ancient than mummies? Yes, actual mummies were super popular. Rich tourists from Europe and the US could actually buy mummies right in the streets of Egypt, which really wasn't very respectful if you think about it. These rich buyers didn't just stop at buying them. They threw parties where they'd unwrap these mummies in front of guests. These events were considered exciting and unusual, making them quite popular among the wealthy. And it gets weirder. Some people ground up the mummies into a powder they called mumia, which was sold as a cure for various sicknesses. This mummy trade went on until the late 19th century, when the Egyptian government had to step in and make laws to stop mummies and other ancient items from being taken out of the country. You know, necessity really is the mother of invention. Ever heard of shoes that leave cow hoof prints? Well, during the Prohibition era in the US, from 1920 to 1933, when making and selling alcohol was illegal, some folks got pretty creative. Moonshiners, those who illegally made alcohol, often worked in hidden spots to avoid the law, but needed a way to keep their locations confidential. That's where cow shoes came in. These were basically wooden blocks, shaped like cow hooves, attached to metal that could be strapped over regular boots. When moonshiners wore these, they left prints that looked like cow tracks, not human footprints, which helped throw off the police and kept their brewing spots hidden. The next story plunges us into the strange depths of the sea, where strange things are said to lurk. The huge creature at Hook Island. For a long time, some people have believed that a giant sea monster lives near Hook Island in Queensland, Australia. This creature, called the Hook Island sea monster, was reportedly first spotted in December 1964. Described as a huge creature with dark skin, about 75 to 80 feet long, this sighting made some people believers. The creature was captured in a photo by Robert Le Serec and his family, who claimed to see this massive animal. But without more proof, we can't really say for sure what it was or if it's really there. Here's something you might not know about World War II. One of the most important parts of the Allied forces was known as the Ghost Army, or officially the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. This group, formed in 1944, wasn't your typical military unit. It included soldiers, yes, but also artists, designers, and engineers. Their main job was to trick the enemy about where and how many Allied troops were around. They used fake tanks, made up radio messages, and sound effects to make it seem like there were big groups of soldiers where there really weren't any. Actually, before D-Day, the Allies tricked the Germans into thinking the main attack would happen at Pas de Calais by setting up a fake army group in southeast England. This group had inflatable tanks and fake radio traffic, which helped convince the Germans to focus their defenses there instead of Normandy, where the real invasion happened. This trickery played a big part in the success of D-Day. It's pretty wild to think about the Ghost Army and the role it played in changing the course of the war. Imagine this, a trial where the accused is already dead, and not only that, he's dressed up in official robes and put on a throne to face charges. That's exactly what happened at the Cadaver Synod. This event took place in January 897 AD, during a really chaotic time for the Catholic Church. Pope Stephen VI, who was in charge then, really had it out for the former pope, Pope Formosus, who had passed away months before. Here's what went down. Pope Stephen VI thought that Formosus had broken some major church rules and had lied about it. So, he decided to put Formosus on trial, even though Formosus was no longer alive. They took Formosus's body, put it in papal robes, and sat it on a throne in the Basilica of St. John Lateran in Rome. They even had a deacon there to speak for Formosus, as if he could defend himself. The whole event was more of a show than a real trial, with Stephen VI loudly accusing the silent Formosus of taking the papacy through shady means. The outcome was pretty grim. They found Formosus guilty, stripped him of his papal clothes, and cut off the fingers he used to bless people. First, they buried him quickly, but that wasn't the end. They dug him up again and threw his body into the Tiber River. Back in the day, during World War II, there was a lot of innovation going on, especially in the military. One of the weirdest ideas was Project Pigeon. And yes, it's exactly what it sounds like. A project that involved training pigeons to guide bombs. The brain behind this quirky idea was B.F. Skinner, a famous psychologist known for his studies on behavior. Skinner's idea was pretty straightforward, but definitely out there. He proposed using pigeons to steer missiles, because pigeons have really good vision and are pretty smart. He designed a special part of the missile where 3 pigeons could sit, each in its own little cockpit with a screen. These screens would show the target, and the pigeons were trained to peck at the target on the screen. Their pecking would send signals to the missile's steering system to keep it on target. Training these pigeons wasn't easy. Skinner used a technique he developed called operant conditioning, where he rewarded the pigeons with hemp seeds whenever they pecked at the right spot on the screen. Over time, the pigeons learned that pecking at the target meant they'd get a tasty treat, which made them pretty reliable at keeping the missile on course. Skinner even used 3 pigeons at the same time to make sure if one pigeon got it wrong, the others could correct the mistake. Could these strange photos be evidence of time travel, or are they simply clever hoaxes? What do you think? Are we overlooking the truth, or is there something more sinister at play? We'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more.